tiny ships in the vast expanse of sea, and the size of the submersible itself is minuscule compared to the environment they're in. It's a very, very difficult job.
Hey, Tom, just to stay with us for a second, we just want to go to the Pentagon briefing. This is not live. This was recorded just a short time ago. They were addressing the search for the submersible. Listen here.
The Department of Defense is supporting the Coast Guard and partner agencies, along with the broader international effort with a range of key capabilities. The U.S. Navy has provided a flyaway deep ocean salvage system used for the recovery of large, heavy undersea objects such as aircraft or small vessels, and salvage and diving subject matter experts to assist in the rescue effort. Plus, U.S. Transportation Command has deployed U.S. Air Force C-17 cargo aircraft to move remotely operated vehicle assets and supporting equipment into the area from both the U.S. and Europe. We all recognize the urgency of this effort, and I know our thoughts and prayers are with the Titan crew, their families, and with all the responders who are working around the clock in support of this operation.
Pat Ryder there referencing the C-17s that flew into St. John's a couple of days ago, carrying that Pelagic Odysseus 6K rove, which we believe was what discovered the debris. It started operating, got on the ocean bottom first thing this morning. It also has heavy lift capabilities, so it might be able to bring at least some of the debris up. We don't know. Those roves have pretty sophisticated optical equipment on them, and I'm sure that the searchers got a pretty good look at what's there on the ocean floor. Do you think that they would have any question, Tom, as to what it is that they're looking at?
Well, I think that there are experts there that can probably put their eyeballs on it and identify the nature of the debris. The area down there, at least when we were there, was, like I said, extremely dark. I mean, it's pitch black.
Hey, Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt. We just got the statement from OceanGate. Says, we now believe that our CEO, Stockton Rush, Shahzada Dawood and his son, Suleiman Dawood, Hamish Harding, and Paul-Henri Nargeolet have sadly been lost. It goes on to say these men were true explorers who shared a distinct spirit of adventure and a deep passion for exploring and protecting the world's oceans. Our hearts are with these 5 souls and every member of their families during this tragic time. We grieve the loss of life and joy they brought to everyone they knew. So I guess what we're going to hear at 3 o'clock from the Coast Guard, Tom, is that the debris field is that of the Titan, that it's in pieces. That would suggest a catastrophic implosion back on Sunday morning as they were descending to the Titanic. Your thoughts as we get this news?
Well, it's a gut punch. It's probably what was in the back of minds of most experts, but we don't want to admit it, or we don't want to give in to that and never give up hope. There's still a small hope that the hull is intact, but it's highly unlikely. And the equipment they do have on board, the ROV they have there is capable, I know, of bringing this up. Again, it's not going to be something they do in the next few hours, even if they do find it. But it sounds like the worst has happened.
I'll just finish that statement with the OceanGate statement reading, "This is an extremely sad time for our dedicated employees who are exhausted and grieving deeply over this loss. The entire OceanGate family is deeply grateful for the countless men and women from multiple organizations of the international community who expedited wide-ranging resources and have worked so very hard on this mission. We appreciate their commitment to finding these 5 explorers and their days and nights of tireless work in support of our crew and their families. This is a very sad time for the entire explorer community and for each of the family members of those lost at sea. We respectfully ask that the privacy of these families be respected during this most painful time." And Tom, we know that in the days that will follow this, there will be a very strong assessment over the time frame after this vessel went missing and communications stopped. It is already a big discussion. How many hours passed before the Coast Guard was alerted and these various agencies were able to descend on that search area?
Yeah, I hesitate to opine on that because it's going to take a while to put all the pieces together, sort out the misinformation, put the facts together, timelines, and I'm sure we'll get a better picture. That we'll never know exactly for sure, but we have people in the system and in this community who are experts who can probably put a very accurate picture of what happened. Hopefully we'll learn from that and avoid any kind of catastrophe like this in the future.
Tom, thank you so much for joining us these past few days. It has been terrific to get your expertise on all of this as we turn a tragic and sad corner in this. Thank you, Tom. Let's bring back Brad McDonald, former commanding officer of a U.S. Navy attack submarine. Again, Brad, just reading from the Ocean Gate statement, the breaking news at this moment. We now believe that our CEO, Stockton Rush, Shahzada Dawood and his sons Suleiman Dawood, Hamish Harding, and Paul-Henri Nargeolet have sadly been lost. It looks like the worst, which was feared but hoped against, has in fact happened. Brad?
Yeah, I don't think I could say it any better than Tom just said it. 2 words. He said gut punch, and that is a gut punch. And I think he was also right that in the back of our minds, most of us had this feeling from the time contact was first lost. So very sorry. Sympathy goes out. There's a verse, if you don't mind me just quoting from the Navy hymn. There's a verse for all the different branches of the service, and the one that applies here says, Lord God, our power evermore, whose arm doth reach the ocean floor, dive with our men beneath the sea, traverse the depths protectively. Oh, hear us when we pray and keep them safe from peril in the deep. So from all, I guess in a sense, maybe I'm representing at least all my shipmates on 5 submarines. I know a lot of submariners, and I'm sure that we're universal in expressing our sympathy for this. On a slightly separate note, I will say right before you made that sad announcement, somebody mentioned that some of this debris might have been from a previous expedition.
Yeah.
And I don't want to make a bad situation worse here, but that really caught my attention. And I thought, well, really? They think they lost debris on a previous expedition? Why were they still operating?
Yeah.
Anyway, that just caught my attention.
Well, and you can certainly make that case from the stories that we've heard about those who were on board. The reporter who went on this particular adventure and made it back, he said that there were problems. There were communications problems almost immediately. And that it has certainly had its challenges, and they have been noted by those who have gone on board in the past.
One thing, and I know I keep bringing conversations back to the U.S. Navy submarine service, but please understand that's mostly what I'm familiar with. And one thing I absolutely know about the U.S. Navy submarine service is the #1 priority is always safety. And a lot of the submarines I was on, the mission priorities would be safety was always #1, avoiding counter detection might be 2, and mission accomplishment might be 3. But safety was always #1. And so that does cross my mind. Was safety the #1 factor here?
Yeah. So there will be a lot of days and weeks ahead where this is all dissected and analyzed, and we may get an idea of what it was that went wrong. Immediately, though, this now switches from a search and rescue operation, and an unbelievable search and rescue operation as it was, to now a recovery operation. And do you believe at this point, Brad, that they would move to try to retrieve the submersible, or would they leave it on the bottom with the souls who were lost in the Titanic?
You and I have been talking, and you've made several references to a potential implosion, and I was minorly skeptical of the idea. But frankly, it sounds like you were probably right. And when Thresher imploded, it covered a debris field of almost 2 million square feet. And so this vessel, much smaller, don't know how much area it covered. It sounds like it might have imploded a few thousand feet before the bottom, or above the bottom. So as it's dropping, it's spreading. So my guess is if they bring anything back, it would be to bring enough pieces back to just confirm that that's what it is.
Right. So as far as whether or not this will be still called a search and rescue operation at 3, obviously that'll be a big question. We are told we're inside the 10-minute window to that Coast Guard update. But the company independently issuing its own statement ahead of the Coast Guard, saying they are grieving the loss of life and that they believe all passengers have been lost that were on board Titan. So that update should be coming shortly. I mean, at this point, we haven't even gotten confirmation about that debris field from the Coast Guard. So this could all be jam-packed in that 3 o'clock update, we assume.
Okay, well, I guess I don't really have a whole lot more to offer here other than sympathy for the crew, and it's a very sad event, and I sympathize, having experienced similar losses in the U.S. Navy submarine force, loss of submarines, and of course when Kursk was lost. You know, that's an interesting thing, is when the Russian submarine went down 22 years ago, it didn't matter what nationality you were. Every submariner was riveted by the story. I've met Russian, Soviet former submarine captains, and within 3 or 4 minutes of meeting these two gentlemen, we were like brothers. There's a bond between submariners and underwater mariners that exceeds any nationality or anything. So we're very sorry for these people that have been lost.
Well, Brad, it is a sad turn of events, not unexpected, though. And we thank you for joining us in the last couple of days with your expertise as well. We really appreciate it.
Been my pleasure. Hope we can meet again in the future on a happier situation.
And thank you for your service, sir. Thank you.
So I assume, Sandra, that the statement from OceanGate was to get out ahead, to make notification first before the Coast Guard comes out with its information. Now, what are we left to learn from the Coast Guard briefing coming up? How much of the submersible did they find? How did they confirm that it was, in fact, the submersible? Was it part of the landing structure? Was it part of the back cowling? Did it have OceanGate decals on the side of it? We don't know. Were any members of the crew found on the ocean floor? I mean, a lot that the Coast Guard will inform us about coming up in the minutes ahead. And I have to say, you know, we all followed Deepwater Horizon and the response to that. Imagine Deepwater Horizon only in an area that's 900 miles offshore, in more than twice as much water, and in a place where humans rarely venture. And yet they mounted this search operation. They apparently found part of the submarine. And you talk about the smallest of needles and the largest of haystacks. What an amazing job they did to at least identify where that submarine is. There's
a new report out from a barista who was one of the last to see the crew before they went missing. And it's a photo of the cafe where they stopped for their coffee before they went off on this journey. And it does talk about how they were ready. They were anxious, and you have to remember that they were put on delay for many days leading up to their final dive because of the weather and other various reasons. And the barista said that upon talking to them, they were anxious. They were a little behind that morning, but they were very excited to head off. And perhaps that was one of the last times that they were seen there at that cafe.
Well, you know, all of this exploration and adventure seeking comes with a huge degree of risk. There were a number of successful dives to the Titanic that the Titan and OceanGate undertook between the time that the Titan was delivered and now. And again, if they bring up enough of this submersible, they may be able to determine exactly what it was that went wrong. There you see the Coast Guard preparing for their briefing. It looks like it's about to get underway.
All right, let's listen.
Thank you for joining us today and over the past few days. This afternoon, Rear Admiral John Mauger will be providing an update on the most recent findings from ROV operations in search of the Titan submersible. He will provide a brief statement and provide the opportunity for questions after. Please limit your questions to one per outlet. Following the briefing, the Joint Information Center staff and I will be here to help you with any of your further needs. May I now please introduce Rear Admiral John Mauger.
This morning, an ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families. On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command, I offer my deepest condolences to the families. I can only imagine what this has been like for them, and I hope that this discovery provides some solace during this difficult time. Additionally, we've been in close contact with the British and French consuls general to ensure that they are fully apprised and that their concerns are being addressed. The outpouring of support in this highly complex search operation has been robust and immensely appreciated. We are grateful for the rapid mobilization of experts on the undersea search and rescue, and we thank all of the agencies and personnel for their role in the response. We're also incredibly grateful for the full spectrum of international assistance that's been provided. The ROVs will remain on scene and continue to gather information. Again, our most heartfelt condolences go out to the loved ones of the crew. We'll now take questions.
John, what other debris have you found? John, what other debris have you found?
Can you talk about the delay in reporting the vessel missing and what impact that had on the recovery?
This was a incredibly complex case, and we're still working to develop the details for the timeline involved with this casualty and the response. And so we'll provide that information.
James Matthews from Sky News. John, what other debris have you found? And have you found any trace of those who were on it?
So this is an incredibly complex operating environment on the seafloor, over 2 miles beneath the surface. And so the remote operating vehicle has been searching, and it is highly capable. And we've been able to classify parts of the pressure chamber for the Titan submersible. Let me refer to one of my undersea experts here, Mr. Paul Hankin, to talk about the nature of some of the debris.
Thank you, Admiral. So essentially, we found 5 different major pieces of debris that told us that it was the remains of the Titan. The initial thing we found was the nose cone, which was outside of the pressure hull. We then found a large debris field. Within that large debris field, we found the front end bell of the pressure hull. That was the first indication that there was a catastrophic event. Shortly thereafter, we found a second smaller debris field. Within that debris field, we found the other end of the pressure hull, the aft end bell, which was basically comprised of the totality of that pressure vessel. We continue to map the debris field, and as the Admiral said, we will do the best we can to fully map out what's down there.
Can I ask It's a very difficult question to ask, but it will be an important one for the families, of course. What are the prospects of recovering the bodies of the missing crew?
So the questions was related. I'm restating the question from the standpoint of sometimes it's hard to hear the question here. What are the prospects for recovering crew members? And so this is a incredibly unforgiving environment down there on the seafloor. And the debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. And so we'll continue to work and continue to search the area down there, but I don't have an answer for prospects at this time.
Admiral, it's Tom Costello at NBC News. Is there any suggestion? Sorry, any suggestion at all that the sub itself collided with the wreckage of Titanic, or that instead it might have imploded above the wreckage and then rained down nearby?
So the question was, is there any question as to whether or not the sub collided with the Titanic or whether it imploded above and debris field created from that? So the location of the Titan submersible was in an area that was approximately 1,600 feet from the wreck of the Titanic. I have an expert here that is familiar with that area and can talk about the debris field and what the debris field indicates in terms of where the casualty may have occurred.
Rear Admiral, really quickly, can you tell me when that massive fleet will be called back?
Hang on a second. The expert voice is coming up to answer the question.
Thank you, Admiral. So the question is, where does the wreck lie in relation to the Titanic? I didn't hear the Admiral's answer. I think 1,600 feet. Was that correct, Admiral?
Yep, you got it.
So that's off the bow of Titanic. It's in an area where there is not any debris of Titanic. It is a smooth bottom. To my knowledge and anything I've seen, there's no Titanic wreckage in that area. And again, 200 plus meters from the bow, and consistent with the location of last communication for an implosion in the water column. And the size of the debris field is consistent with that implosion in the water column.
Thanks.
A question. In terms of the timing here, you say that this was a catastrophic implosion. And I know it's early on, but is it your estimation that this happened right at the moment when they lost contact, an hour and 45 minutes after their descent?
So the question was about the timing of the catastrophic implosion. Right now, it is too early to tell with that. We know that as we've been prosecuting this search over the course of the last 72 hours and beyond, that we've had sonar buoys in the water nearly continuously and have not detected any catastrophic events when those sonar buoys have been in the water. So.
Can you describe what happens from here, sir, in the next days and weeks in terms of finding any more debris? What happens from here?
So we will, the question was what happens from here, what's the next phase? And so right now, again, our thoughts are with the families and making sure that they have an understanding as best as we can provide of what happened and begin to find some closure. In terms of the large process, we're going to continue to investigate the site of the debris field. And then I know that there's also a lot of questions about how, why, and when did this happen. And so, you know, those are questions that we will collect as much information as we can on now, while the governments are meeting and discussing, you know, what an investigation of this nature of a casualty might look like. This is something that happened, I'll just remind everybody, this is something that happened in a remote portion of the ocean with people from several different countries around the world. And so it is a complex case to work through, but I'm confident that those questions will begin to get answered.
From the UK, is there any suggestion that time factors, speed, anything could have prevented this or saved 5 people on board, or is this quite simply a catastrophic accident?
The question was there any suggestion that time factors may have played a role or a consideration in the casualty here? And so the debris field is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel. Again, while we were prosecuting the search, we had listening devices in the water throughout and did not hear any signs of catastrophic failure from those. And so we're going to continue to investigate, or we're going to continue to document the information there and understand, based on all the information we have, the timeline.
What does this mean for the resources required for the investigation? Which ships will be pulling out and coming in?
So the question was, what are the resources required for the investigation, and which ships will be pulling out and staying in? And so it's too early for me to talk about an investigation. That's a decision that's going to be taken outside of the search and efforts that I was leading. But we do have a number of vessels. We have 9 vessels on the scene right now. We had medical personnel on scene. We had other technicians on scene. And so we will begin to demobilize personnel and vessels from the scene over the course of the next 24 hours. But we're going to continue remote operations on the seafloor. And I don't have a timeline for when we would intend to stop remote operations on the seafloor at this point.
As a result of this, do you think there should be changes in the way these are safety rated or inspected so that this won't happen again?
Yeah, the question was essentially about do you think that there should be changes in safety ratings or inspection for these standards? I know that there's a lot of questions about why, how, when this happened, and the members of the Unified Command, have those questions too, as professionals and experts that work in this environment. And this is an incredibly difficult and dangerous environment to work in out there. But those questions about the regulations that apply and the standards, that's going to be, I'm sure, focus of future review. Right now, we're focused on documenting the scene and continuing the subfloor.
I know we don't know the timing of things. I know we don't know the timing here. We don't know the timing here, but there was the banging noises yesterday that redirected and redeployed the ROVs to this area. Is there anything conclusive in those noises, and did that redirection and then finding this debris field today all help?
So throughout the search efforts, we reacted to the information that we had available to us. And while we continue to send it off for deeper analysis, again, really complex operating environment for us to work in. Let me check with the experts, but there doesn't appear to be any connection between the noises and the location on the seafloor. Again, this was a catastrophic implosion of the vessel, which would have generated a significant broadband sound down there that the sonar buoys would have picked up.
This will be the last question.
Can I just ask you about your comment regarding the family?
That dropped into the ocean today. It arrived early this morning. It seems it swiftly was able to find the debris field. If we talk about the speed of that, and also were all of the assets involved
moved as swiftly as possible to the area. Was any help turned away, as some lawmakers have criticized the government?
This was a incredibly complex operation, and we were able to mobilize an immense amount of gear to the site in just a really remarkable amount of time, given the fact that we started without any sort of vessel response plan for this or any sort of pre-staged resources. And so the equipment that was brought on site this morning that we were using was a pelagic ROV capable of operating at 6,000 meters, cameras, sonar, other articulating arms and resources on it. And it, we had to transport it here through C-17 aircraft. This is 2 aircraft that it took to get this up here. And so we've really had the right gear on site and worked as swiftly as possible to bring all of the capabilities that we had to bear to this search and rescue effort. And it was just a huge international and interagency effort to make this happen. So I'm really grateful for all of the responders that came out to support this and really search for the vessel. It is a difficult day for all of us, and it's especially difficult for the families, and our thoughts are with the families today. But this was an immense support, and we had the right gear on the bottom to find it. So thank you.
Will you attempt to recover the bodies, can we ask you, the victims, will they be recovered?
Thank you so much, everyone, for attending this afternoon. There are no future planned press conferences. Updates will be shared to the USCG Northeast Twitter page, and our staff will be available to take down any questions following this.
Can you
Thank
spell
you.
and give us the name?
Yeah, you heard that last question that was shouted as Rear Admiral John Maurer left the podium. Will you attempt to recover the bodies? This is a tragic outcome for the Titan by OceanGate, which went down on Sunday. All of the members excited, I'll stop for coffee beforehand, excited to go on this adventure. Several of them were seasoned divers who had gone down to the Titanic before. A couple of others were first-timers. You had Shanzada Dawood and his son Suleiman, who were Pakistani and family members, father and son, very excited to be part of this mission. Lovers of science and adventure, all of them. Clearly, these individuals have connections to all of the people who have uncovered space and the depths of the ocean, and Jacques Cousteau and all of these individuals who have at many times risked their lives to learn more about the places that the rest of us will never see and will never go to in the depths of the ocean or in space. A lot of similarities to what these people did. Among the dead, Stockton Rush, who you see second from the right. He was the CEO of OceanGate, an enthusiastic embracer of all of this work. Paul-Henri Nojolet, a French explorer who had been down many times, was part of the initial group that found the Titanic wreck. He was among those early pioneers in searching the Titanic. They called him Mr. Titanic. He said, in what is now a difficult quote to read from him, but he said of the dangers involved in these kinds of deep sea expeditions that if something were to happen, you would be dead before you realize that something is wrong. And it certainly comes across from what we've learned so far. And I guess in one way, this is what you might hope for, if there's anything you can say to that regard. It certainly sounds like this was a very quick implosion, as it was described, a catastrophic implosion that likely happened about an hour and 45 minutes into this trip. I mentioned the father and son, who you see on the left side, also Hamish Harding, 58 years old, a British undersea explorer who had also done space exploration as an adventure tourist as well. So these are the individuals whose families are rocked by this news this afternoon. There was hope that was being held out during these 96 hours. And then today, the enormous discovery of debris on the field. And one of the shocking things, let's take a look at the bow of the Titanic, because this is the prize. This is the place they wanted to see. This is where these individuals wanted to go to get a look at this iconic and tragic ship, where so many other people who were willing to get on it and travel from England over to the United States on the first trip that this stunning ship was going to take, they were brave enough to get on it and go. And the debris was found 1,600 feet from the bow that you are looking at on the floor of the ocean, which was described as a smooth area on the floor of the ocean. So let me bring in our senior correspondent, Mike Tobin, who is in St. John's, Canada, with people who have been watching and waiting for news on this, and it has been a hub for the search effort here. Hi, Mike.
Hi there, Martha. And I want to get right to Larry Daly, who operates logistics for Titanic Expeditions and has been down to the Titanic himself. And Larry, we spoke earlier today with the news. It just kept getting worse throughout the day, but you really wanted to hold on to optimism that there was some hope out there, and now we know that all hope is lost. What's going through your mind?
There's so much going through my mind now, but you know, it's hard to take. It's not the news update or briefing that I wanted to hear. You know, first of all, my condolences to the families of the lost crew, and you know, and I just lost you know, a Titanic colleague, my friend P.H. Nargelet, so I'm still processing all of this.
Paul-Henri Nargelet was a friend of yours. He died doing what he loved. By all appearances, he died in an instant. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, certainly. PH, you know, has been involved in Titanic expeditions for many years. The first time I worked with PH was in 1998 on Expedition 98. You know, that's how we met, became friends, and he mentored me, you know, along the way over the years. You know, and yeah, like you said, he's
Sorry, I'm Doc. The backlight is screwing things up. This is come on. If I put my hand in front of it, it gets the camera to get rid of some of the backlight. Sorry for that. That's the best we're gonna get. But this is like a serialistic nightmare for these people, wouldn't you say? I mean, this backlight is gonna piss me off, folks. I'm very sorry about it. Jesus, I can't picture the horror of it all. You know, I said it on Tuesday's show on The Way We See It that I thought that something bad happened to the sub, to where it started rapidly descending to the point where it just crushed like a soda can. It imploded. And from what I'm hearing and watching now, is that's exactly what happened. The Angel, unbelievable. I agree with you. I mean, I got goosebumps right now just thinking of that. I mean, I know it's you know, Jesus. I mean, my God, to sit there and I'm sure they all had hope, you know, whatever. But if it happened fast and when it imploded, trust me, they didn't feel anything. They didn't feel nothing when it imploded. And it was only 1,600 feet from the Titanic. It was only 1,600 feet from the Titanic. Now I'm getting a little pissed. Why wouldn't you stop there for the search? Does anybody know that? Does anybody know why they wouldn't stop from where the Titanic was? And if so, I mean, did they not have the proper technology at that time, okay, to find it 1,600 feet from the Titanic, uh, when it was heading down to check out the Titanic or whatever, did it hit the Titanic? Because that would be crazy, you know, if it actually hit the Titanic and you know got a tear in it or something. Let's see here. It's from Angel. Thanks for watching, Angel. I get that they knew this was a risk. However, no one deserves to be tortured in a sense and die that way. No, I agree. Excuse me. I agree. This is like madness. This is, I just can't do a proper special or a show or anything without being seen. It's just it's not professional. Um, but I don't know. I this is incredible. But I'm gonna be up here live for a little bit longer so everyone can get an idea. And everybody can watch. You might be out right now, and I appreciate everybody who's tuned in to check it out. FFN Network does do this whenever there is, you know, anything, unfortunately, that's not good news. We'll do a little breaking news special and try to get everybody up to speed. But, these three gentlemen that are on right now, let's take a listen to these guys.
Down there sort of not knowing their fate and how difficult it would have been to bring them back up.
You're absolutely right, Martha. I was down there and nearly lost my own life. So that was my worst fear the last 72 hours because I know what that's like being basically in a tin can at the bottom of the Atlantic. You're basically buried alive in water. But I sensed all along that it had, and in fact, I've been on air for the last 72 hours and I've said all along that it had to have been a catastrophic failure. If you piece together the evidence, this was a ship that was designed to pop to the surface within 24 hours if anything wrong happened. It had backup systems, electrical systems, and ultimately compressed air system, pneumatic systems. And the fact that none of those systems kicked in to bring this thing to the top indicated to me quite clearly that it had to have been a catastrophic failure. And as far as the noises are concerned, I never gave that very much importance because, frankly, if I were in that sub, stranded, I wouldn't wait 30 minutes between signals. I would be making as much noise as I possibly could because sound travels very well in water, very effectively. That's why whale sounds can travel halfway around the world.
Yeah.
And so it made no sense to me that somehow they would hear a noise and then 30 minutes later hear another noise. That made no sense to me at all. So sadly, this all made sense to me, and I'm glad that it's laid to rest. As the other gentleman said, this is instantaneous, so that's a blessing.
It is a
when
blessing.
you're talking about pressures down there, that'll crush you. It's like being in a hydraulic press times a billion. So there was no pain, no suffering. Thank God for that.
Thank God for that is right. And the quote from P.H. Nargeolet, who said, "You're dead before you realize something is wrong." He was...
Whoa, 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 whoa. What are you doing?
What they loved is certainly those who were closely involved in this. Stockton Rush, the CEO.
That's what I just got done saying. You know what I mean? It's like it was, this other guy was like that. This thing had so many safety valves. And I heard one of the gentlemen say, what if it got stuck in the Titanic? And that's when something happened. You know what I mean? But yeah, I had to go and put my lights on so you could see me a little bit. Right? It's crazy. It looks like it's dark in my house, but it's not. It's very bright in here. But and I have top-notch cameras. It's just that this one right here is underneath. I got like a shelf, and it's underneath it, so it's not really grabbing light from up top. Anyways, enough of that. But I don't know, man. Water column explosion. Hey, let's let these experts talk about this. I'll shut up.
Who lost their lives there, and it's palpable. And then when we left the bow, we started to the stern, and the first thing that caught my attention is the giant propeller. It's very shiny. It stands out against the shades of gray that are down there. It's almost like the lunar surface. So my attention was caught on that propeller, but then I sensed that our sub was speeding up. And what I discovered later on was we were caught up in a very strong underwater current. They do exist down there, believe it or not. And that smacked us right into the blades of the propeller. Not the blades themselves, but we got caught between the inverted poop deck and the blades of the propeller. We were stuck in there. And from the collision and the pieces of just giant rusted pieces of the Titanic started falling down on us. And of course, mind you, I'm on my belly the whole time. You're looking out at everything through an 8-inch porthole. And I could see that immediately that we were in serious trouble.
How did you get out of it?
Entirely by, I'll just say, as a scientist, I immediately started brainstorming, how can I be rescued? And I quickly discovered, no, you can't. You're in the middle of the North Atlantic, in the middle of the ocean. You don't call the AAA to tow you out. And it was strictly by the skill of our pilot, Victor. He was a Russian, former Russian MiG pilot. So this is a gentleman who was used to dealing with life and death situations, keeping his cool under pressure. And it was only because of him that I'm here talking to you. We could easily have ended up down there. And in fact, during that ordeal, the thought crossed my mind that here I would be. I said, wow, I'm going to join the people who lost their lives down here. I'm just going to be one more dead body. But it was because of Victor's enormous skill and cool, and I just salute Victor and the entire crew and the captain of that Akademik Keldysh, Mitslav Keldysh. It's a Russian research ship. I wouldn't be alive today. He managed somehow to, I could sense, because it's utterly dark down there and he didn't have the spotlight on, so you only go by noise and by the feeling of the inertia, that he was trying to jockey the thing out of there somehow. So I can only surmise, and he was talking in Russian by hydrophone to the top. I didn't know what he was saying, but I could hear the urgency in the voice. He was very intent at the edge of his seat, looking at all his monitors. He had a bigger porthole than I. And just by sheer perseverance,
it's
he
an
managed
amazing
to get
story.
us out.
Thank God. Incredible story, Michael Gillen. Let me bring in Michael Harris again. You know, there is something eerie and so sad about these people who wanted to learn more about the Titanic and wanted to be down there. And as Michael points out, this is a place of thousands of lost souls. And your thoughts